So I was on John Schneider's To Die For a website talking about the DVD or how you can purchase a DVD for your movie To Die For.
Right, right.
And I'm reading about the movie and I saw you could stream it. And then I saw the warning at the end. So it says, warning, this movie is intensely patriotic. If patriotism and love of country offend you in any way, watch this film, then move somewhere else. Filmmaker John Schneider.
You
That
know,
made me laugh.
you just got to say, you have to be bold,
Yeah.
right? You know, one of the issues I think in creative circles has always been, not just now, but it has always been people who are trying to please too many people who are trying to figure out how to make a movie that they will like, or a song that they will like, or write a book that they will like, or a recipe, or blah, 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 blah,
Mm-hmm.
instead of trying to make any one of those things or all of them because I like it. I
Right.
will not make a movie I would not watch. I would not pave a road I would not drive on. Now, it's very simplistic, but I think that is the key to why so many people miss the mark, because the mark is always changing. But you're not that much. We don't change all that much. You know, I still like asparagus and can't stand okra my entire life. Now, beets, I changed my mind on. I like beets now.
Yeah, I haven't gotten that far yet.
Well, you know, give it time. Give it time.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I'm glad to be on your show. Glad to be here. And yes, the movie is intensely patriotic. I tell people, because I've been promoting it now for a couple of weeks. It's been out for, is it the 20th? Yeah, it's been out for a month. And I tell people, look, just go to todieformovie.com and check out the trailer. If you like the trailer, you're going to love the movie and you need to see it.
Yeah.
If you hate the trailer, you're going to hate the movie and you really need to see it.
Right.
Right.
Either way.
Either
Yeah.
way. Well, the cool thing about see, I'm a recovering Yankee. I'm from New York State, so I
Okay.
don't have much of a filter. I'm a Christian. I believe that God is up to something, and that I'm part of it. I believe God is up to something, and you're part of it. I believe that we've all been specifically, uniquely designed to do something very specific. I think uh, whatever God is for anyone who's watching, um, God is not you can't think. I don't think you can believe that God is a random sort of a notion. So he just kind of makes people and does things randomly so that, maybe they'll do something. Maybe that dog will bring back a bird. Maybe not. I don't know. I don't think that's what anybody's God is really about. So we are bold. We're bold. Correct. No. Yeah. What makes it real for me is the battle, the battlefield, the battle that we are in, uh, the purpose that we have. Maybe it's just that's it, the purpose. I refuse to believe that we are, again, back to that word random, that we're just random and we have no purpose. We're here filtering air, for lack of taking up a little space, filtering a little air. Um, and I don't believe that. So what really gets me going is knowing, like, when I was inspired to write To Die For, I heard a story about a guy. So this is one of those, you could call this like a God moment. You could call it a paranormal moment. You could call it, and I think everybody has these several times in their lives where all of a sudden you go, well, you go, "Oh, I get it. I get it. I know what I'm supposed to do. At least today, or at least right now, I know what I'm supposed to do. So I heard a story about a guy that chose jail over taking the American flag off the back of his pickup truck. There had been a restraining order put against him. This came over my Facebook sometime last year, end of last year, about a year ago. And so rather than adhere to a restraining order that said he can't go within 100 yards of the local high school with the American flag on the back of his truck, he said, "No, I'm going to go. I'm going to go anyway." And he got arrested for it, gladly. And I thought, I am that guy. Uh, I I am not afraid to publicly exhibit what I believe in. Okay, and what I believe in is not powder blue sweaters and trying to be nicer than Jesus. I believe we're in a battlefield, and I believe that we have something to do, and I believe that opposition is actually our measure of our effectiveness. If we have no opposition, kind of like sports, if you got the basketball and nobody's on your butt right away, then you're probably not a very good player. So this whole movie came flooding out. It was the easiest thing I ever wrote. It was like, oh, okay, I'm going to start with that. Guy goes to jail. Bam. All right. What happened on either side? Oh, okay. And all of a sudden, it wasn't like my fingers were typing, but every scene in the movie just through me. I wrote it. I don't write from beginning to end. I write, you know, story plot lines. I'll write all of one plot line, and then I'll write the other. So I have a little system. But I don't think this took a week to write. But right alongside of you've got to write this movie and you've got to play this guy, um, came it must be available by October 20th, 2022, so that people will see it before the midterms. Yeah. So and that's exactly what happened. Now I didn't sit down and wait for someone else to make this movie. I didn't go out and try to find someone else to make this movie. Uh, my wife and I made this movie, and it got out October 20th before the midterms, and which is impossible. From from inspiration to distribution can't be a year, but it was. That's another sign, I believe, that God is involved in that, because that is a supernatural event. There's just no creative world in which anyone gets anything out that quick, except maybe a demo of a song. And depending on the song, maybe the song takes the world by storm. Uh, but that's 2.5 minutes played once and then painstakingly mixed. That's not a 97-minute film. And right after I made that commitment, started writing, we were doing an event where I was singing at I think it was a truck drivers event, paying tribute to our truck drivers because they're amazing. And I heard a song down the hall that was all about, it was called That's Why We Stand, about this is why we stand when they fly that flag and sing that song. So I walked down the hall, and a guy I hadn't seen in probably 30 years, his name is Billy Dean, was singing this song that he had written for somebody who was sitting in there. And I said, Billy, that is beautiful. And I just wrote, or I'm in the process of writing a screenplay that song has got to be in. And he said, okay. So the movie bookends with not just a song that's kind of the right song. This is the perfect song for this movie. So that to me says not only was I doing the right thing, but I was now in the right place with the right set of ears on, with my door open, and so that this song could be basically just given to this project. So it's that to me is another sign that not only am I on the right track, but God pays attention. that that is what brings joy and excitement. But I will tell you, I also believe this, that if you are on the right track and if you have been supernaturally touched by God and you are doing what He designed you to do, that you won't be able to buy a trash can big enough to hold the money. Okay. You don't do it for that. You know, this is an important distinction. You don't do it for that, but uh, it will come. It has come. This is, and that doesn't mean that somebody that you have or John Schneider has last week called the enemy. It doesn't mean that Netflix all of a sudden says, "Hey, we want that movie. Here's $1 million." No, I don't want your $1 million, because I can find a bucket big enough to put your $1 million in, but there's not a bucket big enough. If this is a God thing, then this thing is just going to churn out patriots. It's going to encourage people to stand up for what they believe in. It's going to encourage conversation, and it's going to make enough money so that we can turn around and do it again without ever having to compromise or even consider going to work with those people privately that we publicly speak against. That is the seed and the evolution of hypocrisy. There, my gosh, listen to that. I'm gonna write it. That's the seed, and yeah, thank you. And that's the definition of an outlaw. You know, I love outlaws. Um, well, it has to do. I tell you, it had Johnny Cash was the first Christian that wasn't. I said it earlier. That wasn't trying to be nicer than Jesus. That I spent any time with. Well, nice, you know, little powder blue sweaters and how are you? Oh, I'm just so blessed. Really? Didn't you just lose your house? Didn't they just yes, but you know, I've read the book, brother, and I know how it turns out. I said, "Well, no, it doesn't turn out that way. It doesn't turn out that way if you sit on the fence and watch stuff. It only turns out that way if the people God has enlisted into his army, this is John Schneider talking, the people who God has enlisted into his army do something, then yes, it will turn out that way. But if not, God will wait till the right people get boots on the ground." So I lived with Johnny Cash. We did a movie called Stagecoach. Yeah. Well, we did a movie called Stagecoach, and John and I. He was all. I was a big Johnny Cash fan. He was a big Dukes of Hazzard fan. He and June and John Carter used to watch Dukes of Hazzard all the time. And John had recorded a song on the Dukes of Hazzard album called "The General Lee." So when we met to do this movie, this is the kind of guy he was. Before I could come up and say, "Mr. Cash, I'm John Schneider," he came up and found me and said, "Mr. Schneider, I'm John Cash. We never miss your show, and I love your music." Very disarming. Wonderful. So we spent 2 or 3 weeks sitting together on a stagecoach because I was the driver and he was the marshal. So we were hip to hip, elbow to elbow for the almost the whole time we shot this film. And at the time, he was part of the Highwaymen, so they were winning awards and all kinds of things were happening for them. Willie was in the movie, Chris was in the movie, Waylon was in the movie, so they were all in the movie, and I was in the movie. What what people don't realize is that when we were doing that, out of those 5 people, I actually had the #1 country album in the country. So my music was going great, which is why John was very aware of my music. So he said, "When we get done, are you going to make another album?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "Where are you going to stay?" And I said, "I'll probably stay somewhere, rent a place close to the studio." And he said, "Don't be silly, come stay with us out in Hendersonville." So by this time, we were just buddies. I knew he was a man of God. I knew that he did not cover up his scars, and I knew he didn't have a secret powder blue sweater tucked away somewhere in a Samsonite suitcase. It'd be a black swan. It'd have a hole in it, by golly, and right, and a cigarette burn somewhere. So I did. I went out and I stayed, and I warned him. I said, I'm kind of like the guest that won't leave. So because of the nature of touring, I think I lived there for probably a year and a half. Um, not full time, but when I came back to Nashville in between gigs, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I would live there in the Blue Room. The Blue Room was mine, and then I moved across the street to a place that is now John Carter's recording studio. But it was wonderful. But back again, this was a man who was uh, not afraid to be who God made him to be and do what God wanted him to do, and occasionally look down and go, that's not the path. I better get back on it. And reserve the right to be human, albeit focused on what he was supposed to do. So it was a great example, great example. Um, it's why to this day I say Jesus loves me too much for me to drink cheap scotch. Which infuriates a lot of folks. But in my mind, if there was something wrong with it, he would have turned wine into water. And if I'm wrong, he was real, and he was rough. He was manly. He was flawed. He was scarred, and he didn't hide any of that, which I think is the most, yeah, the most appealing part of all that is that it was no pretense. Well, I had become a Christian just before that, and then the people started surrounding me out in Hollywood, Christianity. And it sounds like I'm saying terrible things. It's not. That's just kind of the vibe out here then in the '80s, was that if you were Christian, you had to be nice and everything had to be just swell, right? And yeah, yeah, and yeah, and the church lady, and yeah, all that, and so that didn't appeal to me. So it became real right away. The Little Brown Church of the Valley on Coldwater and Moore Park became very real to me right away. Oh, that's what unconditional love is. Oh, that's what Jesus is right in between that unusual relationship I'm looking at. And then, so it was totally real right away. My perspective changed, not drastically. A perspective change is tiny, but like with a gun, if I aim here, I'm going to shoot that guitar back there. If I am here, I'm going to shoot the one next to it and further away. The perspective, a tiny change in perspective changes everything. And then the gee golly swell people started to surround me, and then it started to diminish. It started to wear away. If this was not the real thing I had seen, then when I did Stagecoach, that real thing was there, in the flesh, and someone that I was a big fan of and respected greatly. Um, so that solidified it, and I'm glad. I'm delighted, and I have enjoyed being that Christian person that many Christians go, hmm. And then they say things like, well, if you were a real Christian, I'm going, oh, I'm so glad that you have so much time. You are so secure in your relationship with God that you have time to advise me on mine. Isn't that swell? Golly gee. So, I'm from New York. I'm a bit sarcastic, But I try to get rid of that. No, I do beat all you ever saw, though. So all that to say, what that boils down to is that when we know we're on the right track, we go for it. We kind of go for everything we do with everything we've got. We're Alicia and I are both all in kind of people, to the extent where we feel if you're not all in, then you're out. Kind of a Ricky Bobby. If you ain't first, you're last. For those of you who don't know Ricky Bobby, that's Talladega Nights. Yeah, there's an album called Southern Ways. That's the latest one. I've had like 24 albums, uh, uh, 5 number one songs. So this isn't just a hobby. Um, but I've got a gig in Colorado. It's not like it used to be. Nothing is like it used to be. 2020 kind of killed everything musically. But the only people really that survived after that were the steady gig bar band people and the stadium people. So all the folks in the middle, moderately successful musicians, have been. It's hard to rally back. We will. I'm just not really sure. Um, we do music. We did 3 what we call Southern horsepower comedy movies: Christmas Cars, Stand on It, Poker Run, and actually we're in the process. I'm almost finished writing Double or Nothing. They're very much like Dukes of Hazzard, very much like Smokey and the Bandit. And with those films, we attach a new album to them. So Poker Run had a lot of the album Southern Ways in it. So the next one, Double or Nothing, which is the 3rd installment of Stand on It, that'll have new music, and we'll go out and we will. It's great because we can go and do music and show a movie. So that lends itself a lot to drive-ins, of which during 2020 a lot of drive-ins got kind of a boost and a shot in the arm, and many of them are still open. People love the whole drive-in vibe. So we'll do a new album for that. Because of the nature of To Die For and because of the Billy Dean song, I didn't want to touch that song at all. Part of me thought, well, maybe you should re-record that. No, the song was perfect. The circumstances under which it was I became aware of it were perfect, and I didn't want to mess with that at all. So we just have a great time, in our sandbox. We make movies, we put music in the movies, we go and we show the movies to people. I love popcorn, so and then we get to do cool podcasts with a. You go to jail for wearing that hat in somewhere. Yeah, gladly, 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 gladly. Uh huh. Well, I tell people that you're gonna leave a mark here. Uh, One way or the other, you're gonna leave a mark. It's up to you while you are still breathing to do everything you can to make sure that mark is not a stain. So, so my sincere hope is that one, two, 20, 1,000, somebody somewhere, the day I die, or at least the day after, will say, if it weren't for that man, I never would have blah. Um, So to inspire, that's the that's the goal, to inspire. We made a movie, oddly enough. I don't recommend. Well, actually, we made a movie that's got terrible, awful, wonderful language in it. That's pretty much a gruesome comedy, kind of like Fargo, but funny, and kind of like Natural Born Killers, but funny, called Anderson Bench. And the premise behind it was, because I was living a terrible marriage. The premise behind it was, if you knew, it's kind of your question turned inside out. If you knew that you were in the process of living not the best day you've had yet, but the best day you will ever have, how would you end it? And if you're not squeamish, check out Anderson Bench. Don't show it to your don't show it at your daycare. Don't show it at your Bible study. It is unabashedly odd, and I think quite delightful. Well done, good and faithful servant. Thank you, my friend. I didn't write that. That's plagiarism, right? I'd love to take credit for that one. Oh my gosh. You are so welcome. Much success to you. Thank you for everybody who's listening. Expect these paranormal things to happen. That's really quickly. Expect great things. Expect odd things. Expect opportunity every day, because it's out there. So expect that weird thing where all of a sudden you're, oh my gosh, I can't not write this. Oh, I can't not sing this. Oh, I'm gonna go over there and help that person, or I'm gonna bring an extra gallon of gas in the back of my truck, not in case I need it, but in case somebody else does. If you're touched by that kind of odd, out of left field inspiration, listen to it and see where it takes you. I think you'll be surprised.